The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, folded too neatly, stamped too boldly, like it already knew it was about to ruin someone's day. Alex didn't even open it right away. He'd just come back from a slow walk around a small property, the same routine he'd followed for years since retiring from the service. The flag on his porch was still damp from the night rain, hanging heavy but proud, the way he liked it. When he finally tore the envelope open, the number jumped off the page. $5,000. HOA violation fine. Alex read it twice, then a third time. Unauthorized structure. Non-compliant fencing. Failure to attend mandatory hearings. Penalties compounded. Immediate payment required. He let out a slow breath, the kind you learn overseas when reacting fast only makes things worse. Alex had lived on this land for nearly a decade. Quiet road. Old subdivision. Most of the homes were built in the late 1950s and early 60s, back when people trusted handshakes more than contracts. The HOA had existed in name only for years, until recently. That recently had a name. Linda Harrow. New HOA president. Newly retired. Newly bored. And very newly powerful, at least in her own mind. She'd started enforcing rules nobody remembered voting on. Measuring fence heights with a tape measure. Photographing trash cans. Sending violation notices like party invitations. Most neighbors paid just to avoid the headache. Alex didn't. Not because he couldn't pay, but because something felt wrong. He attended the next HOA meeting, sitting quietly in the back as Linda stood at the front, arms crossed, voice sharp, reading off violations like charges in a courtroom. When she got to Alex's name, she smiled. Not warmly. Precisely. Mr. Alex Carter, she said, emphasizing every syllable. Repeated noncompliance. Continued refusal to cooperate. Total fines now at $5,000. Alex raised his hand. I'd like to see the authority under which you're issuing these fines, he said calmly. The room shifted. Linda didn't hesitate. The HOA bylaws. You're required to comply like everyone else. I've reviewed what was filed with the county, Alex replied. There's nothing about these rules. Her smile thinned. Then perhaps you should consult a lawyer. The meeting moved on. Just like that. Over the next week, things escalated fast. A lean thread appeared in his mailbox. A warning about potential foreclosure. A letter stating the HOA could seize the property if fines remained unpaid. That was when Linda crossed a line. Alex had faced worse than paperwork and threats. But this wasn't about intimidation. It was about legality. And legality was something Alex had learned to respect deeply, because it cuts both ways. Instead of calling a lawyer immediately, Alex did something else. He went to the county records office. The clerk was an older man, glasses sliding down his nose, fingers stained with ink from decades of handling documents. When Alex explained what he was looking for, the clerk raised an eyebrow. HOA from the 60s, he said. You might want to sit down. 3 hours later, Alex walked out with copies of yellow documents, hand-drawn plats, and one particular filing dated 1963. That was the moment everything changed. Because buried in that paperwork, ignored, forgotten, and never amended, was a loophole so old and so solid it didn't just protect Alex. It threatened the entire HOA's existence. And Linda had no idea what she'd just awakened. Alex returned home with the county documents tucked under his arm like classified files. He didn't rush, didn't celebrate. Years in uniform had taught him that the most dangerous moment is when you think you've already won. Instead, he spread everything across his kitchen table, lining the pages up carefully, reading each one again, slower this time. The key document wasn't flashy. No bold warnings. No dramatic language. Just a dry filing from 1963, recorded when the subdivision was first plotted. Back then, the developer had created a voluntary association, not a mandatory HOA. Membership required written consent from each property owner. No consent, no authority. Even more critical, any future HOA enforcement powers required unanimous re-ratification by all landowners. That had never happened. Not once in 60 years. Alex leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Linda's HOA wasn't just overreaching. Legally, it was standing on air. The next violation notice arrived 2 days later. This one was bolder. Red ink. Final notice. It claimed the HOA board had voted to proceed with property enforcement, including access restriction and legal seizure. Alex smiled for the first time. Instead of responding emotionally, he drafted a short, calm letter. No threats. No insults. Just citations. He referenced the 1963 filing number, quoted the voluntary membership clause verbatim, and asked the board to provide written proof of his signed consent. He CC'd the county clerk and the association's registered attorney. 3 days passed. Silence. Then came the knock. 2 board members stood on Alex's porch, clipboards in hand, posture stiff. Linda stayed back, watching from the sidewalk like a general refusing to step into enemy territory. "Mr. Carter," one of them began, "we're here to resolve this amicably." Alex nodded. "That's good. I prefer lawful solutions." They stepped inside. Alex laid the documents on the table. One by one, he walked them through the history. The missing signatures. The expired authority. The lack of jurisdiction. Their confidence drained visibly with every page. One board member swallowed. Linda said our attorney approved everything. Alex slid another document forward. "Your attorney was hired last year. This filing predates him by decades." That's when Linda finally entered. "You can't seriously believe this invalidates the HOA," she snapped. Alex met her gaze evenly. "Belief isn't required. Records are." Her voice rose. "Everyone else pays." "Voluntarily," Alex replied. "Out of fear or convenience. Not obligation." The room went quiet. Linda accused him of exploiting technicalities, of undermining community order, of being uncooperative. Alex listened without interrupting. When she finished, he stood, walked to the door, and opened it. "I'll be filing a formal notice tomorrow," he said calmly. "Cease and desist. Any further fines, liens, or harassment will be considered unlawful action." "You don't scare me," Linda said. Alex paused. "I didn't come here to scare you." That night, emails exploded across the neighborhood. Linda claimed Alex was spreading misinformation, that he was threatening the HOA, that legal action was imminent. But she couldn't stop what came next, because other homeowners started visiting the county office too. And they were asking the same question Alex had asked. If this HOA was never mandatory, why are we paying at all? By the end of the week, panic set in. Refund requests surfaced. Old fines were challenged. The board scheduled an emergency meeting. And for the first time since taking power, Linda wasn't calling the shots. She was reacting, unaware that the next step Alex planned wouldn't just protect him. It would expose every unlawful dollar the HOA had collected for decades. And that was about to get very expensive. The emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for Thursday night at the clubhouse. Flyers were slipped under doors. Emails marked urgent flooded inboxes. Linda framed it as a routine clarification session, but the tone betrayed panic. Words like liability, misinterpretation, and community stability appeared again and again, vague enough to sound important, specific enough to worry people. Alex arrived early and sat in the back. The room filled fast. Homeowners who never attended meetings before suddenly showed up with folders, notebooks, and phones ready to record. A few whispered thanks to Alex as they passed. Others looked conflicted, torn between loyalty to the board and the uncomfortable feeling that something had been very wrong for a very long time. Linda opened the meeting with a tight smile. She spoke first about unity, then about misinformation spreading online. She insisted the HOA had always acted in good faith and that any claims of invalid authority were legal theories taken out of context. Alex waited. Then the treasurer stood up. Her hands were shaking. She cleared her throat and announced that, due to recent inquiries, the board had asked an external auditor to review the HOA's formation documents. The findings, she said carefully, were incomplete. Murmurs rippled through the room. She continued. The original covenants, conditions, and restrictions, the CC and RS, had never been properly re-recorded after the 1963 voluntary association expired. There was no evidence of unanimous homeowner consent. Without that, enforcement powers were questionable. Questionable, someone shouted. We've been fined thousands. Another homeowner stood. They put a lien on my house 5 years ago. A third added, I paid $18,000 in assessments over 10 years. Are you saying that was optional? Linda slammed her hand on the table. Order. This meeting is out of control. That's when Alex stood up. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't posture. He simply introduced himself and stated that he had submitted a formal records request to the county, along with a notice of unlawful enforcement. He explained, step by step, what the documents actually said and what they didn't. He made it clear he wasn't asking anyone to stop paying immediately. I'm asking you to ask questions, he said, and to demand proof. Silence followed. Not the awkward kind, the heavy kind. Then someone asked the question Linda had been dreading. If the HOA isn't valid, are the fines illegal? The board's attorney, seated quietly until now, adjusted his tie. Based on the information presented, he said slowly, there is potential exposure. Exposure. That single word detonated the room. People demanded refunds. Others threatened lawsuits. One elderly homeowner broke down in tears, saying she'd delayed medical care to pay HOA penalties. Another admitted he'd sold his house under pressure from escalating fines. Linda tried to regain control, but the authority she relied on was gone. No one was listening anymore. The attorney requested a recess. During the break, homeowners crowded around Alex. Some angry, some grateful, all stunned. Why didn't anyone catch this sooner? Someone asked. Alex answered honestly. Because most people assume authority is legitimate. And because challenging it takes time, records, and a willingness to be unpopular. When the meeting resumed, the board made an announcement. Effective immediately, all enforcement actions were suspended pending legal review. That should have been the end of it. But Alex knew better. Suspension wasn't accountability. So the next morning, he filed something far more dangerous to the HOA than a complaint. He filed a demand for restitution. It listed every fine, fee, lien, and forced payment collected without lawful authority, going back decades. The number at the bottom made even the county clerk raise an eyebrow. And once that document was officially logged, there was no walking it back. Because now, this wasn't just a neighborhood dispute. It was a financial reckoning. And Linda was about to learn that abusing power doesn't just anger people. It leaves a paper trail. The fallout came faster than anyone expected. Within a week of Alex filing the demand for restitution, word spread beyond the neighborhood. A local legal blog picked up the story first. HOA authority questioned after veteran uncovers 60-year-old defect. From there, it snowballed. A consumer rights attorney shared it. Then a veterans advocacy group reposted it with a single sentence that ignited public anger. This HOA fined a veteran under rules that may never have been legal. Phones at the HOA office rang nonstop. Linda stopped answering them. Instead, the board's attorneys sent out a carefully worded letter to homeowners, urging patience and warning against rash assumptions. But the damage was already done. Homeowners were pulling their own records, comparing notes, realizing how much money had quietly flowed upward over the years. One discovery hit especially hard. The HOA's reserve fund, supposedly protected for emergencies, had been partially used to cover legal threats against homeowners who challenged fines. Not repairs. Not safety issues. Legal intimidation. That revelation broke what little trust remained. 3 board members resigned within 48 hours. Linda didn't. She doubled down. She sent Alex a certified letter accusing him of harassment, defamation, and intentional destabilization of the community. The letter threatened personal liability if he continued. Alex forwarded it directly to his attorney. Then, he did something Linda never expected. He requested mediation with conditions. The HOA would have to produce every enforcement record going back to 1963. Every fine, every lien, every foreclosure threat. And the mediation would be observed by an independent legal auditor. The board balked. But their attorney didn't. He advised them, bluntly, that refusing mediation would look worse in court than losing it. So they agreed. Mediation day arrived like a slow funeral. Linda sat rigid at one end of the table, flanked by legal counsel and a stack of binders that looked impressive until someone started opening them. Alex sat calmly across, with fewer documents, but far more relevant ones. The auditor spoke first. She confirmed what Alex had already demonstrated. The HOA's authority had lapsed decades earlier. Everything built on top of that lapse, rules, fines, penalties, rested on assumption, not law. Then came the restitution calculations. Line by line, year by year, the total climbed into 7 figures. A homeowner gasped out loud. Linda's attorney rubbed his temples. "This would bankrupt the association," he said quietly. Alex nodded. "That's not my goal." Everyone looked at him. "My goal is fairness," he continued. "Refunds where possible, liens released, records corrected, and a formal dissolution of an HOA that never legally existed." Linda finally spoke. "You're destroying this community," she snapped. Alex met her eyes.
"No."
"I'm exposing what already destroyed it." Silence followed. The auditor concluded her report with a recommendation: voluntary dissolution, negotiated restitution, and immunity for homeowners who had unknowingly enforced invalid rules. The board asked for time. They got 72 hours. During those 3 days, something unexpected happened. Neighbors started talking to each other. Not arguing.
Talking.
People who'd avoided meetings for years shared stories, missed vacations, delayed repairs, anxiety over fines. The HOA had ruled by fear, and fear had kept everyone isolated. Now, the isolation was gone. When the board reconvened, only one original member remained. Linda wasn't there. Her resignation email arrived 10 minutes before the meeting started. No apology. No explanation. Just a statement saying she was moving on to other opportunities. The vote passed unanimously. The HOA would dissolve. All enforcement actions were voided. Restitution negotiations would begin immediately. As homeowners filed out, many stopped to thank Alex.
Some shook his hand.
Others simply nodded, emotional and relieved. But Alex knew this story wasn't about victory. It was about consequences. Because dissolving the HOA didn't erase what had already been done. And the next phase, holding individuals accountable, was about to begin. The dissolution became official on a quiet Tuesday morning. No speeches. No ceremony. Just a stamped document filed at the county office stating that the association, known as Willow Ridge HOA, no longer existed as a legal entity. 60 years of assumed authority ended with a single signature and a date. For many homeowners, it didn't feel real at first. Then the letters started arriving. Liens were formally released. Credit agencies received corrections. Refund checks followed, some small, some life-changing. One couple received enough back to finally replace their leaking roof. Another homeowner used her refund to pay off a medical bill that had haunted her for years. Alex declined interviews. When reporters called, he said the same thing every time. This wasn't about revenge. It was about the truth. But consequences still came. The independent auditor referred her findings to the state. That triggered a separate investigation into misuse of funds and unlawful enforcement. Former board members were contacted for depositions. Insurance carriers began asking uncomfortable questions about liability coverage. Linda resurfaced briefly through an attorney. She attempted to distance herself from decisions made collectively by the board. But emails told a different story. Directives.
Threats.
Fine approvals signed with her name. The loophole Alex found didn't just dismantle an HOA. It stripped away plausible deniability. One by one, the people who had enforced rules without authority realized something sobering. Power doesn't protect you when it's built on nothing. Months later, the neighborhood felt different. Not perfect, but lighter. Kids played in yards without worrying about violation notices. Homeowners painted doors colors they actually liked. People waved again, talked again, laughed again. Alex stayed. He didn't run for anything. Didn't lead a new association. didn't position himself as a hero. When someone asked him why he went so far over a $5,000 fine, he gave a quiet answer. Because it was never about the money. It was about being told to stand down when I was right. The 60-year-old loophole had always been there. It waded through decades of silence, intimidation, and compliance, until someone with the patience to read, the courage to question, and the resolve to push back finally found it. And when that happened, an entire system built on assumption collapsed under its own weight. Not with a bang, but with the sound of paperwork being filed, and power being returned to the people who should have had it all along.